Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 888. A shocking glance. For a second, Klein's act of casually sweeping his gaze paused on that familiar person's figure. He immediately sensed the abnormality in his reaction, since a demigod's spiritual perception wouldn't fail to notice it. His back muscles tensed up as his mind raced, producing figurative sparks. He didn't immediately move his gaze away as he continued looking at the demigod suspected to be from the Black Emperor pathway. He smiled at Mocht and said, "This place really isn't just for veteran officers." This sounded like a result of careful observation, but it was nothing but meaningless chatter. Mocht chuckled. "Any club will exceed its original restrictions when it further develops itself." His answer didn't seem to offer anything, but on careful consideration, it did seem to imply something, or perhaps something that was the complete opposite. At this moment, the broad-shouldered and long-armed gentleman in a black suit had also naturally turned his head. He looked at the two men, and he noticed that the tycoon who had donated £15,000 was looking at him and his companions while engaging Member of Parliament mocked with a whisper. This made him feel that his look of surprise was more of a natural reaction towards learning of his occupation. Then, he retracted his gaze and continued his topic of conversation. And at this moment, Klein's back was covered in a layer of cold sweat, and his legs were going limp. Although he had, in a way, faced the demigod before and had even fought with him, to have such a close encounter in such a small place, with danger happening in a split second, this was a first. And more importantly, he was far from prepared to face a demigod. Not only did he lack a marionette, all he had on him was death knell, Azek's copper whistle, and the adventurer's harmonica. The sea god's scepter was impossible to bring on his person. Furthermore, the usage of it had strict environmental limitations, otherwise, it would result in massive damage. If he kept Grozel's travels on him for too long, he might be pulled into the book world. When that happens, it would become troublesome trying to exit it. Creeping hunger was still lacking a seal, so it needed to feed every day. Unless necessary, it was impossible to take it out ahead of time. The Fate's siphon charm was made from a worm of time, so it was an unknown if it would attract him on. Unless he could use it very quickly, Klein obviously lacked the courage to bring it on him. If the demigod who was suspected to be from the Black Emperor pathway had discovered something wrong with him, there was only one optimal solution he could think of. It was to blow the harmonica and summon Miss Messenger to get her to help him escape Backland via the spirit world. He had never thought of letting Rionette Tinker engage in a direct battle while he held Death Knell from the side to find an opportunity to fire. This was Backland, the home ground of the official Beyonders. With Miss Messenger's unique appearance, that man could easily pin a crime on her, and what awaited Klein would be a joint attack on him. There was bound to be increasing numbers of demigods and powerful sealed artifacts. How harrowing! Klein moved his gaze away in a manner that adhered to logic. Using the clown's ability to control his legs, he walked to the door in a completely normal manner. He didn't ask Mocht who those people were, to appear uninterested as a way to prove that it was all just a casual glance. However, that person turning to look at him had exposed his appearance to Klein. He had thick but unmessy black brows with a short and hard crew cut of the same color. He had dark blue eyes and a high nose bridge with a bushy mustache spreading out from his mouth. He had a long face with accentuated outlines as well as callous curves. He had strong masculine vibes and was probably in his 30s or 40s. It was difficult to determine. Just on his appearance alone, Klein felt that he looked more like an Arbiter Pathway's demigod rather than one of the Black Emperor Pathway. Of course, this demigod's bearing was closer to that of a warrior's, but he was too short. Having had a clear look at him, Klein didn't need to inquire further. He could directly get a Rhodes to answer him. Even if he was still wary of the magic mirror, he could always commission Miss Zio, Miss Sharon, and company to do a simple background check. He believed that no matter how well hidden this demigod was, it was unlikely for him to have a low-ranking position. It would be easy to figure out who he was. 1 step. 2 steps. 3 steps. Klein left the East Balam military veterans mess in a normal manner. When he boarded the carriage, he leaned on the wall, closed his eyes, and kept silent for a few seconds. Inwardly, he let out a long sigh. The disconnected trail of clues leading to the truth of the great smog of Backland has finally been connected again. He didn't open his eyes or say a word, as though he was recounting the business problems he had previously discussed. But in fact, it was to quell his emotions that had been left in an upheaval. During this process, Klein realized that Richardson had tried to speak a few times, only to shut his mouth again, doing so as though he was stumped. Ultimately, he didn't say a word, focused on preparing Marquis black tea for his employer. Due to his previous encounter, Klein momentarily didn't have the capacity to be bothered about him and had pretended to not notice it. Amidst the silent atmosphere and grinding wheels, they returned to 160 Beauclund Street. When he reached the third floor, Klein was just about to head for the bathtub that had been prepared by the lady's maid when Richardson, who was holding his hat and cane, took 2 steps forward and respectfully said, "Sir, are you heading to the southern continent soon?" "Yes," Klein replied frankly. He had even prepared £500 in cash to hand to housekeeper Tanaja for daily expenses needed for the Dwayne Dante's residence during his time in the southern continent. Meanwhile, he had a deeper understanding of the importance of having a butler and valet in high society. There were many things that a master couldn't keep from them, therefore, any conflict in faith and political inclinations necessitated a change. Richardson hesitated and said, "Sir, I was born in the southern continent and am fluent in Dittonese. I'm also very familiar with the various local traditions. I should be of help to you." Dittonese was a common language of the ancient Balam Empire. In present-day East and West Balam, the citizens still used this language. Only people of the middle and upper class knew foreign languages like ancient Faesak, Loanese, and Intis. Klein felt lucky with regards to this because ancient Balam was once a unified empire with a true god existing in it. Therefore, although the different states had different accents, they all used Dittonese. The written language was likewise the same. This saved him plenty of trouble. If I were to encounter dozens or more than 100 dialects and languages, that would be a headache. However, Dittonese and ancient Faesak doesn't belong to the same system. I'm unable to easily grasp the various branches by learning the latter. Finding an interpreter is necessary. Oh, Anderson seems to be fluent in Dittonese. He never seemed to mention having any problems with communication in West Balam. Klein finished listening to Richardson when he suddenly realized what was stumping him. As a valet, he needed to follow whenever his employer headed out. There was no need for a butler to do so. This also meant that a valet was like a secretary for the master's daily life. In certain cases, they would also play a role as a business secretary. Clearly, Richardson enjoyed his life in Backland and everything it had to offer. He didn't wish to return to the southern continent to see scenery or matters that would make him recall his past. Therefore, when he got into the carriage, he had tried to mention his traits but was unable to voice it out. He wished that Dwayne Dantes could find a better candidate. Klein thought for a moment before saying, "I can tell that you don't like the southern continent. Why are you telling me this?" Richardson slowly bowed his head and looked at his toes. "You gave me a chance to gain experience to mature. I believe I can help you." Very simple feelings of gratitude. If you hadn't said so, no one would know that you knew Dittonese. After all, you were born and raised in an East Balam colony manor. Klein carefully sized up Richardson, chuckled inwardly, and made some silent, poignant comments. However, he didn't plan on letting this valet of his follow him to the southern continent. Firstly, it would make it inconvenient for him to carry out certain operations. Secondly, if he was recognized by some nation re-establishment society member of the numinous episcopate, it might end up affecting the rest of his life. Klein laughed and replied, "I have plenty of friends there. They're all fluent in Dittonese and are aware of the traditions there." You have more important things to do. Stay in Backland. Help me deliver some gifts to my friends at fixed periods of time. I'll be giving you a name list when the time comes. Also, read more papers and take note of investment opportunities and also perform on-the-ground checks. Finally, give me a corresponding report. I will get Man Tanaja to specially prepare some funds for this. Richardson was somewhat surprised before saying in pleasant surprise, Yes, sir. I will work hard. At that instant, he felt that he was being put in an important position as his eyes blurred up. From the moment he was born, this was the first time he felt hope for his future. It was something to look forward to. After dismissing Richardson, Klein took a comfortable bath to soothe his tense nerves. Then, he wore his pajamas and returned to the bedroom. Taking a pen and paper, he drew a symbol that was a mixture of concealment and mystery prying. The full-body mirror's surface ripples with aqueous light as silver light formed Loanese text. Exalted Great Master, your puny, loyal and humble servant, Rhodes, is here to answer your summoning. Are you about to leave Backland again? Klein nodded and said, Yes. Without waiting for Rhodes to mention that he could question it, he asked, Can I still contact you in the southern continent? Of course. As long as you take out that magical radio transceiver. On the surface of the mirror, silver words quickly formed. However, you cannot leave it out in the real world for too long or use it too frequently. There are plenty of beneficiaries of the Mother Tree of Desire. She can use it to detect you. Klein nodded gently and asked, What do you know about the Mother Tree of Desire? Rhodes suddenly fell into silence. It was only after a very long time that its silver luster formed a complete sentence. I don't dare to mention it, nor do I dare to show it.